Welcome back to another episode of Future Money. Hope you guys having a great week so far. Wednesday, we're halfway through the week, but a lot of great things have been happening in the world of cryptocurrency and also in finance. So I'm happy whenever that's happening. Whenever we're doing better than we were the day before. Uh, Give me 1 second. Forgot one thing here. So like I said, is I'll ask questions today. Wednesday is always a good day to ask questions, but we're going to talk about Trump's first 100 days in office. How they have affected us, what's coming next, and we're going to talk about Ethereum, what's possibly coming down the line. XRP ETF launched 7 key takeaways that you can use right now. Arizona just approved a Bitcoin reserve. First state to bet billions of dollars on digital assets. Then we're going to talk about BlackRock bought nearly $1.1 billion in Bitcoin. Then we're going to end talking about Ethereum and where it could be possibly going. And we're going to last thing we're going to talk about is how a lot of people, last time you guys in the episode asked me how you could take loans out on cryptocurrency. Well, we're going to talk about how to buy a home with crypto and how you can do that without having any tax implications. And also we're going to talk about a possible Bitcoin bond that could be happening with the U.S. government. So there's a lot of things we're going to talk about today. Let's get 1 second to make sure. If I can. Hopefully the internet's good on you guys' side, but on our side is the downloads are kind of slow. First one of the day, I appreciate it, Connor Smith. Thank you so much for the super chat. So while the internet's loading up, let's just move on. So Trump's first 100 days in office, right, is that there's been chaos, there's been talks of crypto, and a lot of market whiplash. Trump, the first thing he did on those 100 days right before election is he dropped the Trump coin. Then right after that, he dropped the Millennia coin. Now, Trump coin is down 82% from his highs. Millennia is down 97%. And then Trump had a dinner for the top Trump holders, which caused a spike, but obviously something like that is not going to hold an asset up. Now, like I said, I'm going to be candid here. I try to be candid with you guys and straight up. And I don't care what anybody says. I'm getting to the point in my life where I don't care what anybody thinks of me. I don't care if you guys unfollow me. Hopefully you won't, but if you do, well, that's just how everything falls. But I did want Trump to win the election. And people are going to say, what about the social stuff? What about the things he said? Well, so you got to remember, everybody has a different path in life. This is what I do. This is God's path for me. It's finance, financial technology, cryptocurrency, stock markets, and tech stocks. This is all I do every day. What do you do for fun? This is what I do. What do you do when you don't have downtime? This is what I do. What do you watch on TV? Shows and documentaries about this. I don't get into anything else. I'm not really that type of person. Now, I understand the social stuff and all that other stuff is important, but this is what I do. So whenever I look at something, I look at it from what my point of view is. And I say, well, I wanted Trump to win because crypto, tech, he was talking about all these things. So of course, yeah, I wanted him to win because when I do, it was positive. Now, the other stuff, now I don't agree with everything Trump does, but I'm just saying I thought he was a better choice. But the first 100 days of office have been chaos. If this continues, that was a bad choice for all of us. Trump's first thing that happened, he was supposed to do a Bitcoin reserve, and he did it, but it was a disappointment. Because first he put out a quote and said he was going to add XRP and Solana. Then the Bitcoin people got mad at him. Then he said only Bitcoin. And then once he released the Bitcoin strategic reserve, he said they wasn't going to buy any coins. It was just the coins they already got. Now, that was a complete letdown to everything he said. He went around 6 months prior to the election talking about how he was going to do a Bitcoin reserve. Now, nobody defined what it would be, but every other reserve in the U.S. that the U.S. has, they acquire assets in those reserves. The United States has multiple reserves. They got an oil reserve, they got a cheese reserve, they got a milk reserve, they got a granite reserve. You know, the United States keeps these strategic reserves in case something happens down the line in the future. Mike says, I appreciate your Mondo. I really appreciate that super chat, Mike. So, but they always acquired. So the by definition, the word Bitcoin reserve meant that the United States would require, on some level, Bitcoin. And that's not what happened, because they buckled to pressure. First of all, Trump said he was going to do XRP and Solana. The Bitcoiners got mad at him, so the Bitcoin maxis. So he buckled to that pressure and changed to Bitcoin only. Then he did another type of reserve for XRP or whatever. And then when the other people, the government people got mad, the other Republicans, oh, you can't use government money to do this. He buckled again and said he was only going to use coins that the government already seized. I mean, like, what does that do to the price of Bitcoin? Nothing, because those coins are already in the government's control. They just get moved to another category. And they're not going to sell them, but still. So so what happened is that crushed the hopes of the U.S. buying spree. So it caused Bitcoin cryptocurrency to go down. There was a bunch of symbolic moves with little substance. He pardoned Ross Ulbricht, which was a positive step. He appointed David Sacks as the crypto czar. Excited the community, but critics say the White House Crypto Summit was mostly just political theater. There was no policy outcomes, no rules changed, no regulatory issues that were addressed. There was just a bunch of people sitting around a table laughing and drinking wine and eating fancy food. That's all it was. And we expected more. Trump was supposed to be the crypto president. We expected him to get in there. He even said himself the first few months he was going to get crypto's price up to 150. Now, and then he got in there with all this tariff stuff. Now, I understand the meaning, what he's trying to do. The other countries have been taking advantage of us for years. Other countries' tariffs are 3, 4, 5 times higher than what we charge. And it's not fair to the United States. But like a spoiled child, you can't cut a child off instantly. If you've been spoiling a child for 20 years, you can't all of a sudden tell the child that you're going to take his car away, take his allowance away, and make him live on his own. That child will obviously fail, because you created a situation by being weak that now you have to slowly get that kid off of your balance, your books. And that's what we had to do with the tariffs. We had to slowly get them off. You can't instantly tell China you're going to do a 400% tariff. They've been spoiled for 20 years. They're not going to be able to handle that. You need to do that slow over time until they can stand on their own. And that's what we should have done. We did it. He did a lot of it too fast, all at once. And of course, that's going to cause markets and Bitcoin to drag down. Bitcoin fell to 75,000. Then he went back, temporary pauses, because another time he buckled to pressure. But the problem with buckling and saying something bold, then buckling to pressure, then saying something else bold and buckling to pressure, then saying something else bold. Well, now we look at the whole history. He said he was going to do a Bitcoin, XRP, Solana, add that to the crypto reserve. Bitcoin maxis made him buckle, so he came down. Then he said Bitcoin reserve. The people in the House and the Senate got mad at him. Don't use taxpayer money. He buckled again. Then tariffs, another bold move. All the other countries didn't submit like he thought they would. He buckled again. Now, bold moves buckling to pressure, bold moves. It's creating an environment of uncertainty, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. You have to go one way or the other with all this stuff. And hopefully for the next 100 days, he will start to do that. Now, investor sentiment is falling because of all this uncertainty. Bitcoin is still down 12% from when he took office. S&P 500 is still down 8-9% since Trump's been in office. Polymarket's odds of Bitcoin hitting 150 by a year end have dropped 30%. Investors have been turning to gold in this economic uncertainty until recently. So this back and forth constantly is killing us. And hopefully, he said Trump actually has a speech coming up talking about what he's going to do in the next 100 days. And hopefully, over these next 100 days, he can change paths. Now, I think Trump can do it, but he has to stop buckling the pressure. Say a bold move and stick with it. That's what you just got to stick with this stuff. You can't bounce back and forth. You have to stick with what you say, regardless of who says what. So like I said, if you please like the video, help subscribe to the channel. Please subscribe to the channel also. Um, the CNC is still open. If you want to join the CNC, click join the CNC. Is a trading group. It has, we have plays, we have classes, we have a lot of great things going on in there. We're going to make a lot of money this year. A lot of events coming up soon after we get the app out. So hopefully you guys lock in that price today before we raise the price when the app is out. We're going to put that in the chat right now. Join the CNC.com. Just give me 1 second. That's weird. Hold on, give me a second. Trying to do something. So now I want to talk a little bit about this XRP ETF launch. 7 key takeaways you can use right now. So we got any super chats here? Let's see. No, we only had 2 today. So make sure you join the CNC. Let me see any questions. Thank you for being honest about your vote and what you expected. It's time to get right what we thought and who this man is. Everything will change within the next 18 months. You know why? Because any interest rates will start to drop. Thank you, Mickey. Yeah, interest rates are more than likely going to drop. I agree with you there. I think they will too. So there's something else I want to talk about before we move on. So first I want to talk about the XRP ETF launch, right? Is that now they're saying they're not going to launch it on the 30th, which is tomorrow. So the world's first spot ETF, XRP ETF just launched in Brazil. It started trading on April 25th. The 5th is doing very, very well. It could boost XRP's global profile by attracting institutional investors. Now, Brazil beat us to it. Even though Brazil's market is kind of similar to the US, it set the tone for other countries. And it gets XRP on the radar of big players. So, Brazil is a big country. It's not a small, nothing, it's not nothing small. One second here. Trying to make sure everything's up to date. All right. So, all the models, every major analyst, every AI model out there predicts that we're going to be at $4 to $8 by the end of the year with XRP. Now, I think we're going to be 8 to 12, but depending on how strong the demand is and if other countries start to approve these ETFs, a lot of people say $4 is the most likely target, most conservative target by the end of the year. A lot of the AI is saying $4 is a realistic goal for XRP, 80% higher than the current prices. A lot of people look at that price and say, $4, that's nothing. That's 80% higher than where we're at today. There's no investment on earth that continuously provides those kind of returns. And like I said last episode, we have to learn to re-evaluate how we understand what a good return is. For comparison, again, 9% is the stock market average return across the S&P 500. Another one, 8 to 12% is a real estate. If you buy a house, you rent it out, you're going to make 8 to 12%. Now, if you use more leverage, take a mortgage out, you may get to up to 14, 15, maybe even 16%. But that's the most you're going to get out of the house. And you're taking on more risk with the leverage. So you have to understand that those are good returns. If a hedge fund offers 15%, and has a track record of 15%, 4 or 5 years of it at least, they have no problem getting capital. They actually got to turn. Bernie Sanders turned people down, even though it was a scam, because he offered, and people don't realize this. Bernie Sanders, not Bernie Sanders, but Bernie Madoff, shouldn't have mixed it. Bernie Madoff ran one of the biggest Ponzi schemes in history, and he offered 10% returns. 10%. That's what Bernie Madoff offered. And celebrities, athletes, the billionaires, rich people threw their money at that dude to get that 10% consistently every year. He was doing it for 20 years, 30 years. So it was a consistent 10% return no matter what. He would beat the market. Market's 9%. He'd beat the market about 1 or 2%, and people would knock the door down. He would turn people's money down, even though it was all a scam. But conceptually, you see what I'm saying, is that, yeah, that's a good return. 80% in a year is ridiculous. Now, we want to get a lot more. We want to get as much as possible, but 80% is a good return. We got a super chat here. Bo Key says, do you think Microsoft will be able to beat earnings expectations? I think they could slightly beat it. It's not going to be a blowout. What is Clean Spark's price target? I'll look at that at the end of the episode, just to remind me. So Bull Case says $8 to $12. If Brazil's ETF brings in big inflows, Ripple wins more legal battles, and Bitcoin breaks that 120, 130 mark, we could clearly see XRP at $8, maybe even $9, hopefully 12. So let's talk about something that could change Bitcoin forever. That's something I want to talk about. And I'm actually going to put up a video about it on Instagram. So something big out there that could change the game for Bitcoin investors in the U.S. economy is a concept called Bitcoin bonds. It comes from the head of VanEck, Matthew Siegel. He came up with a concept. And remember, El Salvador already does this. They have something called volcano bonds, which, they mine Bitcoin with a volcano in El Salvador. And the residents or the citizens of El Salvador can buy bonds on that, right? So in that bond, 50% of that bond goes to infrastructure, right? And then 50% of the bond goes to Bitcoin. So you get Bitcoin profits. Now, the purpose of a bond, you got to remember this, is that there's different levels of bonds. You got federal bonds, you got state bonds, you got municipal bonds. Now, your city, you can go to the city where you live in, the county where you live in, and they have bonds. And you can buy these bonds. They may pay 6, 7, 8%, whatever. And then after a certain amount of time, it's basically a loan. You're loaning money to your local government or the state government or the federal government. And over time, they will pay that back at a percentage, like 5%, 6%, or whatever. So you buy the bond, the city will invest in infrastructure, whatever they will, and they'll pay that bond back to you. Now, the good thing about most bonds is that they're tax-free. You don't have to pay taxes on them. That's why people like investing in bonds. They're tax-free. And almost a lot of them are, in most situations, are tax-free investments. So, and you got to remember, some bonds, you can invest in bonds all over the world. They have some bonds that pay out at 20%. But the higher, you remember this, is that you have to understand this, is that whenever yields go up for investments, the risk also goes up. Now, it could be, the risk may not go up as high as the return you're making, but the risk does go up as the yields go up. So some municipals out, like Puerto Rico, I think pay like 16% on municipal bonds. I believe they do. Let's look it up. Puerto Rico pays out, I know at one point they paid out like 17%. Puerto Rico right now pays out, I can't tell. But at one time, Puerto Rico was paying out 60%, but that was right after they went bankrupt. In some municipals all over the world, when it's time to pay your bond back, they just don't pay it. They say, oh, sorry, we ain't got no money. That's what Puerto Rico did one time. That's the reason why their bond prices went way up, because there was a risk of default. If they default, there's nothing you could do. Nothing you could do about it. So back to the question, the point is that there's talks in the U.S. government right now of replicating El Salvador's strategy, in which the government will start to change the definition of that Bitcoin strategic reserve. They'll start acquiring Bitcoin, but they can't do it with taxpayer money, because remember, that's what caused the pressure on Trump to change it to only seize Bitcoin. So the other option is to provide bonds. So a U.S. citizen or whoever all across the world can buy a bond. They use that money from that bond to buy Bitcoin. As the Bitcoin appreciates, the government takes a percentage of the profit and you take a percentage of the profit. And that's floating around right now in the halls of the Senate and the halls of the House of Representatives. There's several politicians that are thinking about doing this. And the key thing about this is that that's a way So let's just break it down what it was. A Bitcoin bond would be roughly it'd be a 10-year investment like most bonds. So 90% of your money would go into safe US Treasury bonds. The other 10% would go into Bitcoin. Now, the government would use this structure to raise money, buy Bitcoin at the same time without directly using taxpayer money. As an investor, you get all the gains up to 4.5% a year, all the Bitcoin gains. After that, any additional profit will be split 50-50 with the government. The idea is to give you inflation protection, upside potential, while also helping the government lower borrowing costs. Now, here's the kicker. The bonds will most likely be tax-free. The bonds will be tax-free. Now, no income tax, no capital gains on your Bitcoin. That's a way to get Bitcoin without even paying taxes. That means you could own Bitcoin completely tax-free. That's massive. And the projected Bitcoin returns, they said the people who have been thinking about this have said that we could see an 8 to 17% annual return on those bonds. In a bullish scenario, even 30 to 50%. Now, all of that will be tax-free. So that's a way that you can own Bitcoin without paying taxes. Even if Bitcoin underperforms, some of it's going to regular bonds, so you still wouldn't lose. It would be a hedge against Bitcoin even dropping. In a worst-case scenario, government still wins because it locked in lower interest payments compared to traditional bonds, and there's a lot of political support. Cynthia Loomis is backing a plan for the U.S. to acquire a bunch of Bitcoin, hopefully with bonds. Bitcoin bonds could be the beginning of a new era. Bitcoin plus Treasury bonds, all tax-free. That's a combo that a lot of people will be very, very interested in. So I really think that's a good idea. I think they should go forward with that. El Salvador has shown it. The people in El Salvador have made ridiculous returns over the last 4 or 5 years investing in Bitcoin, volcano bonds they call it. So I think the U.S. should follow that strategy. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel and also like the video. All right. So now I want to talk about Arizona and their Bitcoin reserve. And so Arizona's first state in the U.S. to hold a Bitcoin treasury. Arizona became the first state to greenlight a Bitcoin reserve. Now we got to wait for the sign off, but up to 10% of the state's $31 billion in assets could be allocated to Bitcoin and other crypto. That's 10% cap, means that it could go into Bitcoin, it can go into NFTs. I hope they don't do NFTs, but they could. If fully deployed, Arizona could acquire 31,000 Bitcoin, surpassing even Tesla. That's more Bitcoin than Tesla. And more Bitcoin than almost 90% of any corporation that is holding Bitcoin right now. Give me 1 second. No. So the state will also create a fund for seized crypto assets and future allocations, on-chain audits, and risk management protocols built in. Now, the thing about all of this is that I come from my background in security. That's actually how I got into crypto. Cryptography, cryptology. That's a study of computer encryption and encrypted messaging. So that's security. That's a subset of software security. So I'm very curious to see how all these states' governments are going to protect their Bitcoin. Because I remember even exchanges get hacked. Several exchanges, Bybit got hacked. Now, what happens when one of these governments get hacked? What happens if the federal government gets hacked? What happens if Arizona gets hacked? That's going to be horrible, man. That actually could cause a war. You got to remember this in the city. Remember, Bybit was more than likely hacked by North Korean hackers. You want to see what World War III could be started? Imagine in a situation 10 years down the line, the United States has $1 trillion in Bitcoin. Let's just say, just for argument's sake. and then North Korea hacks it. You don't believe we're going to war over that? You don't believe we'll bomb them over that? That's a real threat that a lot of people aren't talking about, is that if, and it's going to also be a big target, because if you are able to hack into the United States or any other state's crypto reserves or Bitcoin reserves, you not only get the money, you also hit your enemy in a way that he cannot recover from, because Bitcoin can't be recovered or it can't be sent back. Once they got it, they got it. So you've hit your opponent financially, and you've also got a financial gain on yourself. So it returns into a zero-sum game in which when you take your opponent's money, you hit him two ways and you actually become richer and you become more powerful. So it's going to be interesting to see how they are able to manage this security issue, because the best security people in the world are going to be coming after the hackers, I should say. And it's going to be a game of who has the bigger, like arms race, but in security. So this Arizona deal is a big precedent for states and nations. This move could spark a wave of state level or even countries all over the world as Bitcoin's adoption. Arizona is now ahead of even Texas and Florida in making Bitcoin a formal part of public finance strategy. Now, before we move on, we want to talk about BlackRock ETF buying nearly $1.1 billion in Bitcoin. Before we do that, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. Also, make sure you join the CNC before the price goes up. Man, we're down to 650 people. That's crazy. I wonder what's going on. We keep dropping people every week. As soon as crypto gets over 100, we'll be back to 1,000. But that's what, if you've been following me for years, you know this is what I talk about, is that when times are hot, it's full of people. When times are down, nobody's here. And that's really depressing to me and disappointing, because these are the times the millionaires are made. It's not made once it's already up. It's made now, because it's easier to learn, easier to position yourself, easier to grow when nothing's happening, when it's calm. Once everything gets hot, first of all, you gotta have information overflow. When everything's hot, information's coming at you from everywhere. You don't even know where to go. You have no base. That's why a lot of people lose money. They go and they bachata and dance during the times when the times are low. And then once the times come back up, now they're excited again. And we talk about this in my book. I've actually expanded on it in the new edition, which I got to turn in tomorrow. I think today. Yeah, I got to turn in today. Not tomorrow, by the end of the day. So I've expanded that in that book, talking about emotions, because people are, it doesn't matter how talented you are. It doesn't matter how successful you are. It doesn't matter how good you are at your job. If you can't manage your emotions, you know different. It doesn't matter, because that's more important than almost anything. So we got two super chats. Connor says, why wouldn't the government use a form of cold storage? The government would use a form of cold storage. We got to remember this, Connor. I think Connor, is that Bybit had their crypto on cold storage, and they got hacked from billions of dollars worth of Ethereum and Ethereum-based assets. So even if it's on cold storage, let's say it's not attached to the internet, there's still a risk of inside jobs, flipping somebody, social engineering. There's a lot of ways that you could, like North Korea did not hack Bybit in a traditional manner. Remember, Bybit's Ethereum was on cold storage. They didn't get on a machine like you see on the movies hacking. No, they use social engineering. What you do, social engineering is a method in which you just trick somebody into doing something. You don't even have to be good at coding. You just call somebody up and say, hey, man, I left my pad. I just started work here, man. I'm supposed to go into the server room, and I don't have the passcode. Now, how do I get it? And then you just work your way around till you finally figure out how somebody just slips up and gives you information they shouldn't give you, and then you get in. I had a friend that would do this. I had a friend that worked for the military. He was a smart guy. I'm glad I met him. We went to grad school together at USF. Both of us studying software security. Now, his job, he was in the military at the time. His job, he was an officer, but he was a special forces. Now you say you imagine a special forces person out in the field with guns and stuff. You know what he was? He was in the special forces. What he did is he was a hacker. That's all he was. I'm sorry, he wasn't in the army. I think he was in the Air Force. I think he was in the Air Force. And in the Air Force, they were hiring hackers and paying them the same as pilots back then. They probably still are. So the same as a helicopter or a plane, you were the same in the eyes of the military. And you never carried a gun. You just worked in a server room. So his job was to hack military systems. So what they would do, his special forces, this is what he would do. He would do it at other places too, but he would do it. He would test. He would intrusion test the systems we had. So one of the things he'd do, they would take him to a random military base, and they would drop him off. And all he would have was a backpack, and they say hack the system. So he would have to, and he had a laptop. So what he would have to do is figure out a way to hack the military systems, and there would be a payload he's supposed to steal. And him and his team would just, they're in civilian clothes and they have to find a way onto the base. So one of the things he did, it was a good story he told me. He said, one of the ways I hacked a military base is that they dropped us off. Remember, we don't have nothing but our clothes and a backpack full of stuff. He said, the first thing we did is we went down to the military store right off base. We bought some uniforms. Paid like, $50, bought a whole uniform, got the name tags printed up and everything. They'll do that there too. We walked on base, said we lost our pass. But by commanding officers, blah, 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 let the people on base, they was in uniform. So the dude walked around, went into one of the computer rooms, and found an open room. It was a closet or something. He got in the closet, and there was a network cable jack in there. So he sat down, plugged the jack in, and started hacking the system. Then he got in, got his payload, and left. Now, that's not really like that's mostly social engineering, you see? And that's a lot of ways that people hack now. It's not like on the movies far away. It's like things like that people hack now. So cold storage is still a security risk. It's a little bit reduced though. How can we invest in volcano bonds in El Salvador? I don't know how to do that, Elgar. So you have to look that up yourself. I don't know how to invest in volcano bonds. So I don't even know how. I've never looked into that. So you have to search for that yourself. I apologize. Next time I can look it up and we'll talk about it next episode. So I want to talk about BlackRock buying $1 billion in Bitcoin. BlackRock just bought $970 million in Bitcoin. April 28th, BlackRock Bitcoin Trust scraped up almost $1 billion Bitcoin. It was only 2 days ago. ETF demand is big and is back. That one-day purchase pushed total inflows into all U.S. Bitcoin ETFs by $590 million. While most ETFs had zero and negative flows, BlackRock is clearly leading the pack. ETFs are driving this Bitcoin boom that we're having. It's not even retail investors, because retail, if you look at the numbers right now on this stream, is retail investors are checked out. They're not even paying attention no more. But they will. But retail, the rich, the elite, and the banks, institutions are the ones that are buying Bitcoin right now. ETF inflows have helped Bitcoin bounce back to where it's at now, even while retail investors mostly sat on the sidelines. So let's take a look at Bitcoin right now. Bitcoin is cooling off a little bit after bouncing from 74 all the way to 96. Perfectly normal, even healthy for a sustained run to take place. From a technical standpoint, it just got above that critical zone we talked about last week. It could be retesting that support line. If it can stay here and head back above 96, things are going to get extraordinarily bullish really quickly. So, and also I want to talk a little bit about XRP. XRP has broken out from a major downtrend resistance line. Seems to be cooling off a little bit. It's not moving. People are getting all the message. Why is it not moving? Well, it's cooling off right now. Before it heads higher, it may need to have a technical move back down, a slight move back down to the breakout point. As it tests the newfound support, this will confirm a technical breakout if it's back tested and it went higher. So, I'll talk a little bit about Ethereum's big moves. Before we do that, please like the video. Well, we only got 21 likes. It can't, maybe because I didn't refresh it. It's got to be that. Let's move on. So Ethereum is underperforming the market right now. I know that. It's underperforming a lot. It's way down. But man, Ethereum is supposed to be at like 6,000 right now. It's at 1,800, 1,700, 1,750. So Grayscale wants Ethereum holders to get paid. So we talked about last week about Solana staking in Canada, in which you invest in an ETF, a Solana ETF, and you also receive profits in staking, almost like a dividend stock. Now the U.S. Ethereum ETFs, they want to do the same thing. Grayscale is asking the SEC to change so that American investors can finally get Ethereum payouts with the staking, like everybody else overseas. Now that's going to be a concern for the SEC because now if you receive a yield on something, it starts to look more like an investment or security. So that's the reason why in the United States we're having a problem accepting that. But SEC needs to realize that we're on a new era of technology, a new era of finance, and things that look a certain way aren't a certain way anymore. But that's the reason why the SEC is having a problem, because if you receive a yield on something, it's a security. It's a security. That's what they're thinking. So because of this rule, investors have missed out on $61 million in staking rewards because they can't stake Ethereum that is in those ETFs, those spot ETFs. That's almost like having money you can't invest it because the government won't let you. So another thing that's happening is Vitalik wants Ethereum to run 100 times faster. Ethereum is proposing replacing the core engine of Ethereum with new tech that can make the network much faster and a lot cheaper to use. A huge boost for long-term growth. Ethereum charts are saying that a bull run is more than possibly start right now. Big investors, whales are loading up. One top analyst said Ethereum is about to break out of its pattern. If Ethereum gets past 2,800, we'll be back to all-time highs very quickly. After that, altcoins are going to follow. When Ethereum moves, other coins like Solana, ADA, AVAX will start moving too. Ethereum wallets are accumulating, the whale wallets, so that's always a positive sign. Ethereum price could move fast, right? We can see the same move we saw in 20 and 21. Fear right now around XRP is starting to normalize, and it's normally the last phase before prices explode up. Now, last thing I want to talk about is buying a house with crypto. Last week, people asked me, how do you take a loan out on crypto? I thought this would be the most practical way to do so. So I wanted to do 7 steps to buying a house with crypto. Before we do that, I need you guys to like the video. Have a subscribe to the channel. Please subscribe. Mike says, take a look at the ZBEC network. I will take a look at it, Mike. Mickey, I really appreciate that super chat. Thank you. All right, so last thing I want to talk about is this crypto-backed loan, right? Is that, remember, you don't have to sell your crypto. With a crypto-backed mortgage, you can use your Bitcoin or Ethereum as collateral instead of cash. You get to keep your crypto, you get a loan in regular money, and you can buy a house. So there's platforms like Nexo, Salt, they make this possible. These companies will let you lock your crypto and get a home loan. Each has different rules, interest rates, and supported coins. So be careful before you jump in. It's fast. Each coin has a different interest rate. Each coin is different, so you have to be careful. It's fast. You can skip credit score stuff. Approval is quicker than traditional loans. It's not happening in hours, maybe sometime instantly. Many lenders focus on the crypto value. They don't even look at the credit score. Because once you give them the crypto, now they have a loan that's backed by collateral. That's how the rich get loans. People don't realize this, but they get collateral-backed loans. That's why they get them so easy and so quickly. And then they use your credit to see how much leverage you can get on that loan, or how many, So you still own your crypto. So if the crypto continues to go up, you still make money off of that. As long as you make payments, your coin is safe. But if the market crashes, your crypto goes in value, you may have to add more. That's a margin call. So, for example, if I got $50,000 in crypto and I say, hey, I want to take out a loan. So I send my money to Salt. Salt gives me, let's say, 2/3 of that. That's what's called a loan to value ratio, LVR. So that means that out of 50,000, what's that? let's say 100,000. It's easy to do the math on the fly. Say I got $100,000 loan. I give it to Salt. Now I want to get a 2 to 3, let's say a 70% value loan to value ratio. That means they give me $70,000. So now the rule of that is that if crypto falls, that $100,000 of crypto falls to $70,000 value, I got to put in more crypto. Or they're going to do what's called liquidate me. That means they have to sell that crypto to cover my loan. So I give them 100,000 in crypto. I take $70,000 in cash, put it in my pocket. I use that for something else. Now the agreement is that if it keeps going up, you're okay. Just keep making payments. If it goes down to 70, you got two choices. We're going to liquidate you, and you don't really have a choice in that, or you can add more crypto to make sure we're safe. So that's why you never you never take a loan out on all your crypto, because if that situation happens, they're going to liquidate, which means they force sell it, they cover the loan, and they close out the loan. So you don't owe them nothing, but also you lost your crypto. So that's the risk of doing that. It's called a margin call. So you also avoid capital gains when you do this, because you never sold your crypto, you're taking out a loan. Because you're borrowing against your crypto instead of selling it, you skip capital gains taxes that can save you a lot depending on where you live. Blockchain makes all of this transparent. The loans are often used, they're based on smart contracts, fewer middlemen, they're cheaper, less paperwork, faster approvals. Now, crypto is volatile. If your coin price crashes, your loan could collapse, just like we talked about. And rules are different in every country. I just talked about the US-based rules. So make sure you check the legal side of your own country or where you're at. I think New York has different rules too before you sign anything. Now, I've done this before, and it's been very fruitful. And I just think that it's a great option for people who really want to keep their crypto, but also access some of that value and maybe invest in something else. If you want to invest in something else that's going to be an income-producing asset, then it's a good choice. Let's say, for example, you got $500,000 in crypto. And you say, well, I'm going to take $300,000 a loan. I'm going to invest in an Airbnb or something like that. So you buy Airbnb and you start making profit on that. So now your crypto now you got enough leeway in there, because you only took $300,000 out of the 500, so that if crypto, it's not going to fall that much, more than likely. So you make money off the Airbnb. You also get depreciation of that property, and you also get depreciation of Bitcoin. That's how the rich people move. That's how the wealthy, the rich, and the biggest people in the world move. And that's what I was talking about. Somebody that worked for me before, soon as he got his money, he bought 3 Rolexes, a boat, a Tesla, a SUV. You don't do that. That's idiotic. And that's why people get stuck in these ruts for their entire life. You always look to buy assets first. Something that's going to produce money for you. A house, a business. And like I say, there's hundreds of businesses on Flipper. There's hundreds of businesses on Empire Flippers. There's other websites out there in which you can have $10,000, $20,000. You buy a website that's making $1,000 a month. You pay $20,000. You buy a website that's making $1,500 a month. And you got to remember, if you took out a loan to do that on cryptocurrency, you can pay off the loan with the profits. And then after, let's say, 15 months of that, or, that's roughly what it takes to pay it off, 14, 15 months, maybe less, but $1,500 a month, it would take you roughly 15 months to pay it off. The 16th month, you're 100% profit. And you also have the value of the company you can sell to somebody else later. Because you can buy a business. So I've done this before. Improve it and sell it again to somebody else on the same platform you bought it from. Some of these businesses run on their own. Some of these businesses are just websites with content. Some of these businesses are just drop shippers. Somebody's built up a business, makes $12,000 a month, $1,200 a month, maybe $3,000 a month. They sell it for $40,000. You buy it with a loan. Makes a lot more sense with a loan. And now you use the profits from the business itself to pay off the loan. And then once the loan is paid off, you own the company. You still got your assets you took the loan off of. And now you're making a profit on both. And then you do that all again and again. That's how you compound your money. That's why you cannot, the first money you make is what I call your breeding stock. I'm a country boy. I'm from the country, Tennessee. I was just there last weekend. But farmers, A lot of times back in traditional uh, Tennessee culture, is that when you were married, your father would give you breeding stock, or your mother or somebody at the wedding would give you, they give you a cow, a bull and a woman cow, a female cow. And that's your breeding stock. It's up to you to make that into 50, 100 cows, or it could be goats or whatever. Now, if you're so stupid that you take the two cows, you cut them up and have a feast, yeah, you're gonna have a man. I'm telling you, that feast will be amazing. The whole city will be there cheering you on. You'll look like a well-to-do person for that weekend. Have a barbecue with two whole cows that'll feed 1,000 people. But after that's done, you have no breeding stock. You never kill your breeding stock. That's a sign of desperation. That breeding stock is to grow. Now, anything that comes off of that breeding stock, yeah, you do whatever you want with it. The babies and the grandchildren, yeah, you can kill them, eat them, have barbecues, whatever. The first two cows you get, you cannot kill them and eat them and have a barbecue. So many people do this when they make their first money. They kill their breeding stock. And then they end up, what happened? The world is against me. They should have gave me 4 cows. That was, I mean, my dad got 100 cows over there. He could have gave me another one. Can you give me some more cows? Oh, why is he he's so stupid? He won't give me any more. And the world's against me. I don't have any cows. Yeah, you made the decision of killing your breeding stock. That's your salary. That's your income. That's the money you make. Those are when you get lawsuits. That's anything. You sell a house. Those are the windfalls and the income and all this money that comes into your life. That's your breeding stock. You don't kill that. You kill the children, the grandchildren, and the offspring of that breeding stock. That's the interest on all the money. That's what you use for the Louis Vuitton purses and the vacations and the even Uber Eats, all that, the luxuries of life. You don't use the money that comes in initially, you use the interest that is generated off the assets. So with that being said, I'll give you guys a minute to ask any questions. I'll let you guys go for the night, week, I guess. Been wanting to buy something from Flipper for a while. I can't pronounce it, but you gotta be careful with Flip. About 40% of them are scams. So you gotta be very careful. Remember, I should do a whole thing on this, is that when you buy a business, and I want to talk about this, whenever you buy a business, you got to understand this. It don't matter how big or small it is, the owners are hiding something. Because remember, a business is valued on a multiple of revenues. I may do a class in this in the CNC, actually. I will. Actually, I will do a class. I'm going to write that down. I'm going to do a class in the CNC when the app drops on how to buy businesses on Flipper. Because I've done this hundreds of times over the, now let's say, I'm lying. Let's say 30 times over the years. I bought small ones, big ones on Empire Flippers directly from the people, business brokers. So we'll talk. I'll actually break that down how that works. You got to remember, whenever you buy a business, you have to keep in mind the owner's hiding something. They all are. And normally it's revenue, and normally it's expenses. So they'll tell you, well, I make $2,000 a month. I'll give you a good example of a business I was going to buy years ago. Some of them I buy small ones. They may be kicking off $3,000-4,000 a month. Because I'm saying, well, I can get this. I can improve it, get it to $8,000 and sell it for a multiple, make $200,000 in a year, and not do this to 3-4 businesses at a time. I've done that before. So one of the things in business is that when you buy these businesses, is that the owner hides something. I'll give you a good example. One of the smaller businesses I was going to buy 10 years ago, it was actually a person here in Tampa that was buying it. She owned a sign flipping service. And she was making about $2,000-3,000 a month. So all she did, I look for businesses that I can automate. I can write, back then especially, I'd write code for it that would replace the person that's doing all the work, and then I would grow the business and sell it. And I've done this a bunch of times. So what she would do is that she would get these people in, and then she would hire sign flippers. She had a group of people that, back then, I don't know if they still do, but they flipped the signs and dance and stuff. And that got real popular about 10, 12, 13 years ago. So in Tampa here, they were doing people were doing that a lot. So people would call, she was ranked first on SEO. So you looked up sign flippers in Tampa, she come up, you would order a sign flipper through her. She would charge $20 an hour. She would pay the sign flipper $10 an hour. She would make $10. So she said she was making like $5,000 a month. She was going to sell the company for, I think 180,000 or something, 70,000. I forgot what it was. So I was like, all right, well, let's look at. We sat down with her. Nice young girl. She's in her 20s, doing real well. And so I said, all right, so you make $5,000 a month. Let's see your books. So she opened up her QuickBooks, and it said zero every month. I was like, whoa. You said you make $5,000 a month. She said, yeah, but you know, I spent everything so I wouldn't have a tax burden. So I'm looking at this stuff, and in her thing, she was buying like food, she was buying like materials, buying stuff. Now I'm confused. Like, how much of this stuff, but paying for a car, which is all okay under the tax law. But now as a buyer, I'm confused. How much of this was that you really had to do to run the business, and how much of this is just stuff you use to get out of taxes? Now, to a business owner, I'm trying to get a lower valuation as possible so I can buy the business for cheaper, because it's based on revenue times a certain amount of months, depending on the business. So if the revenue is lower per month, then the business is worth less. So I'm confused. I don't know what was business expenses, running business, something, you know. So I actually just walked away from that deal because it was so convoluted. I didn't know, because our books weren't clean. But you got to remember is that an owner will try to hide revenue. I'm sorry, they'll actually show revenue. They'll hide expenses. It could be. I've seen people on Shark Tank that I knew through. I knew somebody who ran an ad agency that worked with the girl. I'm not gonna say her name, but she got on Shark Tank. She said, "Oh, I sold $1 million worth of product this year." Shark Tank people asked her, "So how are you advertising?" "I don't do any advertising. It just went viral." And I knew the person who she was paying money to promote the product online through ads. And she told the people in Shark Tank that she don't have any. This is viral because that's what you want to do. You want to, because your advertising could be more than what your revenue is. But that's okay when you're starting a business. But people will hide that. They'll pay for it with different sources. They'll use a whole nother account to do it. They'll pay for it with credit cards or something like that. So you will never see it in the revenue. So when the company looks like it's just doing it on its own, you buy the company, all of a sudden your leads, your leads and purchases fall, and you're like, what happened? It's because the people did not report that where they were getting their leads from. And that happens to I say most businesses are lying. Now you have to figure out the degree at which they're lying. Sometimes just a small lie. You know, dude ain't telling you that he not buying something. You know, he's not paying for advertising. Something small, that's acceptable. Some of the stuff lies are a lot bigger. That's what due diligence is. But just be careful with the flipper. Flippers more likely to be fraudulent than likely empire flippers. Empire flippers, the valuations are higher, they cost more, but they're also a lot more secure businesses. These are all online businesses. So I'll try to do a class on that, and I'll do a class on that in the CNC. I'll actually start planning that now. So join the CNC and you'll get a class for that. Put the join the CNC down. I can put it over here. I'll work on it this weekend. Huh? I already got it. With that being said, I hope you guys have a great day, and I appreciate you.